you and I can both be doing the same thing. It could be ironing a shirt, and you're doing it and you're losing energy from it. And that's because of the attitude you have around it. For me, I love ironing shirts. Actually, it's calming for me. It's meditative. It's the attitude. That's a philosophy thing that's there.
Hey, you all, welcome back to Necessary Entrepreneur. I'm pumped about today's conversation. I have some notes. I have to go to the iPad because there's such great, incredible info from Todd Herman. He's written a New York Times bestseller, The Alter Ego Effect. It's the power of secret identities to fuel our lives. Awesome. So he's a peak performance coach. He helps ambitious people do hard things and win. I'm pumped about that conversation. You say you're science-based, reality-based, and won't bullshit us. So I'm like, let's go, man. So I have a question as we let's go. How in the world does a guy who grew up on a large farm in Canada, you just told me it's thousands of acres, 30,000 acres, that has developed a disdain for chicken coops, and you're the world's worst ukulele player, what the heck has caused that combo of things to develop an elite system the way you have?
When I was leaving the farm and ranch, I was the third boy. And typically when you're the third, you don't get to do all the fun stuff on the farm. So driving the tractors and operating all the big machinery, I was a lot of times stuck doing some of the crappier work on the farm. So I didn't develop the affinity towards it like my other brothers did. And I was also someone who aspired to travel around the world a little bit more than planting my roots on a big farm. And my parents knew that I was not going to be coming back to the farm. And so they sat me down before I was leaving for university. I had a college football scholarship and stuff. And they said, listen, we're probably not going to be able to help you with whatever career you go and do in life, because it's going to be something vastly different than farming and ranching. Hopefully we've established some good character traits though, for you while you're here. But our only advice is whatever you go and do, tuck yourself under the wing of whoever is the best at it. Seek out the best. And that advice, there's so much wisdom in it, because really what that does when you follow it is it's a really message to your own sense of personal esteem and how you feel about yourself, that you deserve to be around the best, that you deserve to learn from the best. And so I'm a product of mentorship. I went and tucked myself and found the best people who were in my space early on, because I was trying to build my business back in 1997 on the back of speaking. I was introduced to Jim Rohn, and he became a personal mentor of mine, and he kind of taught me some of the ropes, and I got to see the inside of his mastermind. He had a mastermind group of 8. Zig Ziglar was in it, Jim Rohn, Larry Wilson, and I got to see how they operated and how they all created business for each other. So that set up a bunch of ideas in my head. And then I went and tucked myself under the wing of the greatest mental game coach on the planet. This guy, Harvey Dorfman, known as the Yoda of baseball, worked with every big name baseball player there was. And I went and spent 33 days with him at his home during the baseball off season. I saw how he worked with the best of the best. Like when you're sitting there and you're next to, or really I was sitting behind Harvey, and I watched him coach Andy Pettitte, right? And then the very next day, Craig Biggio comes in, and these huge names, and every single context I had about what it would be like working with the best of the best, all of my assumptions were broken. I saw what it was that it took. So that's a big part of the story of how I built this big peak performance company and worked with people like Kobe and Cristiano Ronaldo and others, is relationships and being humble enough to tuck yourself under the wing of people that were far smarter and better than myself at the time.
If you wouldn't have had that advice from your parents, obviously they had massive trustworthiness with you, and you knew to listen, how you see them live their life. You knew to listen to them. How does someone today, if they don't have that parental advice, or someone that they trust for 10 or 15 or 20 years, this might go back to Tyson and his mentor that found him, that he then trusted what he said. How do we know who to listen to and who to trust?
Yeah, well, the first thing, it's a really good question, especially in today's day and age where everyone postures like they're an expert online or they have their entire lives figured out. Like, I mean, I tell people all the time, like, listen, I am fucking world class at two things. And, I look at just my own track record of the people that I've worked with and who keeps on coming back to me and how my name is in the certain space that I operate. And all those things are messages that I must be pretty damn good at what I do. But I don't sit around and tell you that I've got everything figured out about how this universe operates. And a lot of people speak with that kind of, posturing confidence that is a pretty good litmus test right off the bat that they're shades of, um, uh, a straw house that they've kind of built themselves on. But I'll give you something really practical that I give advice to young people all the time about, which is if someone isn't actually a practitioner of what it is they're trying to tell you to go and do, like they don't work with people in my world one-on-one. So for example, someone's telling you how to market your business. Okay, well, I would much rather listen to someone who's an agency owner who actually executes marketing campaigns daily across multiple types of businesses or multiple types of clients than someone who is showing you what they did to create success in their world. Because that's not necessarily a one-trick pony, but that's anecdotal evidence, right? Like when it comes to mental game work or peak performance work, there's just not a lot of people who have the reps that I do working with people one-on-one. And so I would just say to people, like, when you're consuming information or a diet, whether it's books or whether it's YouTube videos or whatever, just double tap and look a little bit deeper at the person or the channel or whoever it is and go, yeah, but do they actually do this work with people every day? And if
Is
they
this the
don't do
example?
it and they're just giving you advice from their own experience, that's fine. There could be value in it, but you need to put an asterisk next to it because that's their personal journey.
Would you, not to invoke a name that you didn't, but it just strikes me of, like, you brought up marketing and a marketing agency, and Gary Vee popped in my head. And he recently wrote the book Day Trading Attention. It's the evolution of all the books that he wrote. And if anybody opens up that book, it shows you exactly what he does. And so I'm sure, whether you don't have to be a fan or not, but that's what you're talking about versus someone that just says, look, I've kind of played around in marketing. I kind of did this thing. I'm
Yeah.
assuming those documented receipts are what you're talking about.
Yeah. And I mean, love him or hate him with Gary. And I know Gary quite well. His office was actually next to mine in New York City.
Hudson
And
Yards and his new one.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. That's where my office is as well. And he's you could actually go back to some of the things that he said when he was just doing Wine Library TV, which is when, I mean, I met Gary back in those days. New York City's still a small enough town where you cross paths with people a lot, and there's a lot of things that he predicted that were, pretty on the head. So yes, that's an example of someone that is a practitioner of the stuff. Like he went out and put his money where his mouth is and he started an agency. Now, is he personally executing? No, but he's around and he's in meetings with people who are executing the campaigns and he's creating a massive feedback loop of information. So yeah, not to go deep on it, but it's a good example.
Yeah. So I think you mentioned Larry Wilson. Was that the guy's name who
Yeah.
was the one that was mentally working with all the baseball players?
No, that was Harvey Dorfman is
Okay,
yeah.
Harvey Dorfman. So did he play baseball?
He did. But not necessarily, he didn't play it at a professional level or anything like that. No.
That's funny how he became the person that's what he specialized in with those guys.
Yeah. Harvey's real specialty and what I got to see behind the scenes of was, I'm not going to bring up the baseball player's name, but arguably top 20 baseball player of all time. Some people would probably put him in top 3 at his position. And, he was the first professional that I saw, Harvey work with. And he was unpacking some stuff around just what was going on in his personal life. And he was bringing me like 2 minutes, kind of almost complaining about his wife. And and then Harvey leaned forward. He's like, "Are you done being a pussy ass bitch?" Excuse the language. That's exactly what he said verbatim. And the ball player sat back. He's like, "Yeah, I think I'm done. Just needed to get that off." And I sat there going, "Wait, you got to remember." So this
It's
is
like,
2000. I'm 3 years into my thing, but I'm only working with like amateur athletes at the time. And I wasn't anywhere near getting a sniff of a legend of a game. And I was like, oh, wait, you can talk to people like that. Now, again, I come from a farm and ranch, very plain speaking. It's how my dad spoke as well. He didn't swear, but very plain speaking stuff. And it was almost, oh, I had an excuse that I could just be more myself with people. And that it was about those athletes, the reason that they really deeply resonated with Harvey and why he had the best name there was in baseball, is because they knew that he had their back,
yeah.
and he wasn't going to sugarcoat anything, and that just completely aligned with the way that I am with or became as with my clients as well. So trust was really the thing that he was trading on more than anything, and that became exactly what I was now trading with clientele as well. Because when you're working people on the mental game, I need, like, Mark, with you, if I'm truly working with you privately, I need the full scope of like how
Everything.
you perceive things and how you're looking at something. And when you're at the professional level, and you, especially nowadays with so many people who want to trade on your name and want things from you, and they don't genuinely have your best interests at heart, there's very few people who these individuals can truly trust. And that's really what our, value exchange is that.
So back to the book. There's all kinds of stuff for us to talk about here. But when did you write The Alter Ego Effect, The Power of Secret Identities to Fuel Our Lives? When did you write? When did it become published?
So it was published February 2019.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is it, without me reading the entire book, saw some of the cliff notes, I'm like, this is really good. There's just so many books that are on the list, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so do you still, without invoking myself, anything that's in there we can discuss with you, is it still completely true the way you wrote it 5 years ago, 6 years
Oh,
ago?
oh, absolutely. The one thing that I wanted to do with the book was give people the entire method. So it's the alter ego effect. So the effect of alter egos is that it became this powerful tool to help people transform themselves a hell of a lot more quickly. Why? Because identity is where you stack on your habits, your attitudes, your perceptions, your behaviors. And most people are trying to really transform their worlds by just changing some habits. But if you fundamentally don't see yourself as someone who can achieve the big thing that you're going after, then it can be a very slow process. Whereas if I could change your identity, so the way that you perceive yourself and using an alter ego, um, I could make those changes with people far more quickly. But I wanted to give people the entire method in the book. So that's the effect, is I can it transforms people. The method is in there. So yeah, no, it's still the exact method I still use to this day. I mean, there's 7 private clients in baseball, hockey, and soccer that I'm working with right now on a brand new identity for them.
Um, how do you help ambitious people do hard things? There's so many questions I have above and below that statement or that question, but I'm just going to let you take it. How do you help them? Because ambitious people by default, I've seen, are more willing to do hard things,
Yeah.
right? But so how do you help that happen, to do the hard things and win?
Well, the one thing is to help them uh, let go of really bad paradigms that are typically holding them back. So there's some perceptions that people have about what it means to be ambitious, which is that we're rough around the edges, that the thing that drives me is because of some dark energy thing that happened when I was younger, or that it's the thing that like gets my motor going. And they think that that's the reason why. And that's fine. that they have that. It's just that it really depletes more energy than you need. Like that there is no personal recognition amongst a lot of people who are ambitious that, that you evolve, right? Like the thing that drove you 15 years ago doesn't need to be the same thing that drives you today. Um, and so as I'm helping ambitious people do tough stuff, hard things, um, it's giving them frameworks to help organize their mind better. That's one of the things that you do. It's unshackle and delete. I say peak performance is actually a subtraction and a removal process more than it is ever you doing more of something. Ambitious people, typically the tool that they pick up is the tool of more. Got to do more. Got to do more time in my day. More this, more that. And yet, when you really study or you pay attention to the people who did achieve not just greatness in their discipline or domain, but say like legendary status,
Mm-hmm.
they're oftentimes doing a lot less than other people. They're just concentrating their energy towards the few things that move the biggest levers.
Mm-hmm.
I'll give you a really quick example. So most people don't, from a perception standpoint, look at basketball, hockey, and soccer and say, oh, those are all the exact same sports. And yet they are. They are the same sports. Why? Because at their core, they're about time and space. Baseball isn't about time and space. Even football isn't as much about time and space because it's one of the unique sports where you're literally lining up human chess pieces and going at it. I mean, that was my sport. I love football. But hockey, basketball, and soccer are about creating time and space from your opponent, from you, so that you've got space to do your maneuvers, or you create time and space for your teammates so that you can kick the ball over to them and now they can have a free run at the goal.
An
So they're
assist
about
is as an assist is as valuable in those sports as the goal.
massively. I mean, it's this, yeah. There's so many goal scorers who will, if they have a sense of humility, will say, "Thank God I had that guy
Yeah.
on my team to send me the pass or to give me the space so that I can, do the fancy move that everyone saw on the highlight reel tonight, the saucer pass in hockey, say." But so because they're about time and space, people think about speed as the ultimate thing, but really it's about acceleration and quickness. How quickly can you get away from someone else? I'd much rather have someone who has amazing acceleration than some big 40-yard dash thing. Looks good on camera, but really it's the ability to get away and break away from other people. Point about all that, bringing it to Kobe. Kobe practiced just a few drills to give him the ability to create time and space, just that 0.2 of a second more than someone else, so that he could release his shot, whether it's a fadeaway or whatever, over the outstretched arm of someone who might be 5 inches taller than him. Those little things make a big difference in the, granularity of greatness versus legendary status.
So maybe that's the silver lining, identifying what those are for a business
Big leverage
leader.
points. Exactly. What are those things where you can extract the most value from the time and energy that you're really putting into the different activities of your business? I mean, with the business clients that I work with, that's what we're looking at. Like, what are the biggest lever points?
Mm-hmm.
And they change as well. Like, what is a great leverage point for you right now? It's because of the context of your business size. But when you get to this level, so let's say $3 to $12 million, which is another category in business of like the things you need to be doing. Now there's new leverage points that you need to have, and most of them are about the ability for you to transmute your skill set and leadership ability into other people to allow them to be. Now it's about crafting the other tools around you. That's a different leverage point.
I heard so often that Warren Buffett would open up his calendar, his schedule, and there's nothing in it.
Mm-hmm.
And people were so surprised. And they said, "Well, what do you do?" And he said he spends X amount of hours in his office every day reading yearly reports of companies.
Yeah. Now, here's the thing. Taken out of context, some new entrepreneur who's at 150 grand a year in business says, "Oh, well, I need to fucking clear my schedule. Like, cause look at my schedule. It's like, no. That's the period of time that you're in.
Yeah.
It should be loaded right now because you need reps. And the other people who are going to crush you later on, a year, 2 year in business, are because they have reps in their discipline or their domain or whatever the case is. So I hear that thing all the time for people who posit that we should be reading as much as possible. I'm like, listen, like my wealthiest friend, and he is a big man on Wall Street, has never read a book in his entire life.
Yeah.
But what he does read is the same stuff that Warren Buffett does because it helps him in his financial world that he lives inside.
So isn't that a conundrum of we read the books, we listen to the people that have come before us, and we listen to their way. That might not be our necessary way that we need.
That's right. And just even in that, like that statement that you have is, may not just be reading something. It's also because you're consuming something for your own preference point. That's wrong. You might be better at listening to something. That's me. I'm far more an auditory person. Now I have a massive library and all those things, and I know how to photo read, and because I'm dyslexic, and so I had to teach myself a new reading style when I was young. But
so you're audible at 1.5 or 2?
2.4. I'm
to be exact.
Yeah. And actually, I'm lying. I'm not 2. I'm actually 3. I say that because some people don't believe it, but you can train yourself with it. But yeah, and just my brain operates at that speed with it, and so you don't just have to read all these books, and I don't know. There's just a lot of very unfortunate paradigms that people, just rules that people make up as to this is what successful people do. I'll tell you one thing that they do. And this is one of the things that, going back to your question about helping ambitious people do hard things. One of them is, and if there's really one takeaway beyond, hey, everyone go and buy the Alter Ego Effect book because it's an extremely valuable tool.
There's the plug mid podcast.
Yeah. I would say the one thing I would really encourage people is stop asking yourself why you want the things that you want. Why is one of the most nuanced and challenging questions. I would rarely ever ask a client why they want something. Because when you really think about it, Mark, that question of why, it's typically a judgmental question, not necessarily in a negative context, but it's like, you tell me that what you want to do is you want to build, the necessary entrepreneur into top 10 entrepreneurial podcast in the world. I say, well, why do you want that? Now what you need to do in that moment is, and this is a big demand for a lot of people, is communicate to me all the reasons why you think that you want that thing. And a lot of the reasons why, or the want, it's just sometimes, and this is the best thing I could ever give a client, is sometimes you just want what you fucking want. Mm-hmm. That's what you want. Mm-hmm. Don't fucking tell me. Because the demand on that is that you actually have the words to describe to me.
When you said it, that's instantly what I thought. I was like, if I were to answer that question, it's because I just want it, Todd.
Yeah, you
my
just
brain
want it.
Was already there.
But what I want to do is normalize that that's okay, and that you do not have to answer anybody on why you want it. You do not have to answer anyone. And so the best verb, and this has been on at press conferences from my professional athletes or clients, when someone asks them sometimes the why question. I've had a few of them that just say, it's just what I want. And they go, yeah, but why do you want that? It's personal to me. It's what I want. Because I don't want those people to force themselves to now articulate why it is that they want it. And when they hear the words come out of their mouth, they start to judge those words because they go, that's actually not why I want it. But I don't want to tell people why I actually want it because it would sound egotistical or narcissistic. And I'm like, no, I need that in you. In order for really ambitious people to drive them to go and do some of the things that they go and do, it would sound like they're fucking lunatics.
Yeah, like they're a sociopath.
Yeah. No. You don't need to answer the why question all the time. And when you think about where that comes from, who actually asks those questions? People who don't do this work every day. I sit with people and have for over 20,000 hours over the last almost 30 years. And you learn when you're out on the field to play with people every single day that there's just some stuff that has been passed down through personal development, self-help, or spiritual traditions that just does not work on the field. And that is one of them. And so the people who write that stuff, all they're trying to do is fill up a couple of pages in their book on why, why. And you just don't need to answer that.
Thank you for allowing us that freedom, Todd.
Yeah. I mean, if it can unshackle people from just some of the weight of what they think that they need to go and no, just if that's what you want, admit it to yourself. That's the only thing I want someone to do. No,
Yeah,
admit it to yourself.
Yeah, so many, because all it is it's someone questioning someone else. That's what it is. And
in the end,
yeah, it's unnecessary. Maybe, back to Jim Rohn, man. If there was one thing I could go back and do in life is, I'm not somebody who has, I don't find myself wanting what anyone else has. But if I could go back and have a different experience in life, it would spend some time around Jim Rohn. And some of the things that guy says, I'm like, what the ultimate communicator? I don't know how he lived his life. I know throughout life he had some regret and he reflected in relationships, but from what I understand, and he massively affected Tony Robbins. We hear Tony talking about him. I listen to that guy and I'm like, he just had it figured out. But the funny thing to me is, it seemed like he also battled to execute possibly himself. Am I wrong about that?
100%. 100%.
That's so wild to me.
Yeah, no. But in the thing that mattered the most, which was his ability to craft a message, he excelled at executing. And I mean, he would give me a hard time, and it's in his audio programs as well, but he would give me a hard time on the making sure that you choose the right words to describe the thing that you're, and so he instilled that in me around just continue to hunt for a better way of saying it. Like you're never done. Like every time you think that you've perfected the description of the, product or the service or the speech that you're doing, no, you can always find a way. And I mean, the best comedians talk about that, right? Like, I mean, just the cutting out of one word can change an entire laugh line for the punchline of a joke. Okay, so
his timing seemed just impeccable too. He just
his cadence.
Yes.
His cadence. I mean, he's a true one of one when it comes to speaking and presenting ideas. He would get into trouble though, because it's funny, he would get into trouble because he would have like say like a 55-minute after dinner speech, at the Water Buffaloes or wherever, right? Mm-hmm. And he would get into trouble because he would oftentimes go over his allotted time. He would go an hour and 20 or whatever. And he loved a mic. And I mean, whatever, I'm the same way. I loved a mic too. But he, early on, he made me record my talks that I was giving. And I'll give you one specific piece of advice that he gave me, which was just gold. It's not like he sat there and watched my entire speech, but he would, and again, this is back in the day, I'm sending him a VHS. And so I send it to him and we got on our next call and he said, Todd, you speak in a lot of platitudes. And so there's this one point in your talk where you say, mental toughness is the most important skill that you can develop as a high performing athlete, something like that. And he's like, well, of course you're going to say that. You sell mental toughness stuff. So he said, a better way of doing it is take someone that your group that you're speaking in front of already respects and get them to make your point for you. So for example, and this became a big part of my early talks in the late 90s, at the end of the Utah Jazz and the Chicago Bulls finals, that's the one where Michael had the flu. Or really food poisoning during that.
Somebody delivered the pizza to the hotel.
Yeah, exactly. And so now they're interviewing Michael afterwards, and this one reporter was saying like, how are you able to go and do that out there? And he said, because I spend twice as much time on my mental game as everyone else does on their physical game. And so I was like, so I went back, I literally reached out to the TV station to get the archive tape because back then it's not available on YouTube. Grabbed it, and then I put that into my PowerPoint presentations. And so that's what I do. I'd get Michael Jordan to make my point for me. And so that became a big part, and it's still in my keynotes that I go around and do. Is anytime I'm getting to a point that I really want to make to people, I'll try to use someone who the audience already respects because, of course I'm going to talk about mental toughness being key and important and all these things, but lands differently when Michael Jordan says it, and I can actually use the videotape of it. So
someone that no one's going to question.
No one, especially for that space. Now, if I go and use Michael Jordan in front of, an audience of 35 to 45-year-old female entrepreneurs, doesn't resonate the same, right? So I'm going to find another library of someone to help to make my point. But that's my point. That's what I was going to say about just Jim is he would give these like really practical nuggets in how to communicate your idea in a more impactful way. And again, just going back to our earliest part of our conversation, that's the power of getting around the right people. And Jim would just say, like, the power of one word or the right word is the difference between, a razor hot, sharp knife going through butter and using a doorknob instead. Huge difference.
I hate that we only have almost an hour for this. This could be one of these 3-hour ones, but that's what we have. But what about the 90-day year?
So, I was a few years into working with athletes, and this kind of sometimes phenomenon would reveal itself where athletes that had really long seasons, baseball is a good example, you would see this performance dip happen. Sometimes in the middle of the season, sometimes a third of the way in, 2/3. Like it would be somewhere. And it just one day we were sitting down with one of my baseball players, and I just said, well, let's just cut your season in half. Let's just see what that looks like. And it happened to be 90 days. And so we called it originally a 90-day sprint. This goes back to around 2001. And so in that 90-day sprint, we would focus on one main goal. And then we would, like, if there was one thing that we achieved in the next 90 days that would make an outsized impact, we talked about leverage earlier. This is really leverage in action. What would that be? And so we set that, and we build out the other goals that go below it, performance goals, which is about measuring. So I will improve X to X. And then there's the process, which is who, what, when, where. It's the 4 W's. That's what process goals really are. Who, what, when. Who's doing it? What are they doing? When is it happening? And where is it happening? What's the context of it? And then when I was doing a lot of speeches on it, then that's the thing that attracted the corporate or the business world saying, hey, like this 90-day thing. Because people talk about quarterly planning and stuff. And that is what became my performance system for entrepreneurs as well, and then evolved into being called the 90-day year, which is really a name that this executive at Chevron gave me, because he's like, sprint, that's not really a thing that we use in the business world. Now it is because of Scrum. But he's like, we use calendars. So we just said, well, it's called 90-day year. And that was about 2004. And so 90-day year is like a performance system that you install inside of, it doesn't have to be just a business. It can be your family. It can be anything, personal life, that helps you to build a lot greater focus and know what to cut away. Like this next 90 days, it's only about this thing.
Hey, thanks for tuning in. If you like these types of conversations, be sure to follow The Necessary Entrepreneur on your favorite platform so you never miss out on future content. I'm hearing a lot about a singular focus.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a platitude, right? Focus, discipline, consistency. But when you take a look at what is the biggest cause of strain or stress amongst ambitious people, I'm not talking to people who just want to go along with the flow. Hey, go use whatever you want.
We're talking elite.
I'm specifically talking to people who have bigger aspirations than just the norm, right? And there is a demand that's there. And that one of those demands is focus. So how do we get there? How can we decide on what's the most important and relevant thing? Well, that's what this whole system was born out of, was helping people come to that decision point so that we can cut away what is normally for an ambitious person overwhelm. They add too much stress and strain to their calendar, to their goal system, to their teams. And then they wonder why they have a low performing or underperforming self or team. It's because it's the weight of too much.
I recently heard Mark Andreessen, one of the VCs, the top VCs in Silicon Valley. And so I recently heard someone ask him, because he's so close to Elon. If I invoked his name 6 months ago, people would feel differently about it. I'm not going to steer away. I'm not going to steer away from it. I'm just going there. I don't think someone's name should invoke that unless it's somebody from like World War II. But they said, what makes Elon, since you're so close to him, what makes him specifically unique and different than even the other elite performers that you're around? And he said something that I can't believe I hadn't, through all my research, through all my diving on trying to have high performance myself, self-accountability. He said, I consistently see him take the top 3 most critical and difficult problems in each one of his businesses. So take SpaceX, for example, or take Tesla. He said he'll take the 3 most critical and most difficult problems, and he will solve them all within 30 days.
Yeah, and I in another quote from Andreessen talking about Elon, when he looked at what he learned by coming into Elon's companies, was the relentless focus on solving the main problem in a week's time. So come to me with what the biggest issue is that we've got this week, and let's have it solved by Friday. And when you think about, if you get into that type of rhythm, there is a feedback loop of decision making. Like, hey, because when you do that enough times, you're going to start to figure out what were the most valuable things. What are the big leverage points? Did we even work on the right thing this week? We solved it, but it didn't solve the ultimate pain point that we have. Now you're going to question the way that you're looking at it, your own perceptions. And, everyone talks about the first principles that whether Elon operates through, or, Charlie Munger, who's one of my favorite thinkers of all time, would speak about getting to the root of it better. And you can't do that through thinking tools alone. You have to do that with execution. You have to do the shit. You have to get
the
out
practice,
there.
the practicality of it.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
you hear the first
and then also
so many people. So Zuckerberg and all these people, but
I think one of the biggest things that people could start to implement. It's one of the first things when I'm auditing, say like the calendar of a CEO or a founder that I'm working with, is the preconceived reflex, or the reflex that people have to say like, yeah, let's get on a call. And in everyone's mind, a call is 30 minutes or 60 minutes. And what I want to do is I want to break that immediately. Like, even for me, when my private clients get my calendar to book with me, there are 5-minute calls, there are 15-minute calls, and there's context around each. This is what we use a 5-minute call for. This is what we use a 15-minute call for. And this is a 30-minute call. Rarely are we going to use some of these longer calls. So I would just say, like, first thing you can do is just question your own assumptions around how long does an actual call need to be?
How long does it take to solve a problem?
Yeah. And even more important than solving a problem is, there's a lot of people I've met in my life who are great at solving problems, but they have nowhere near the life that they actually want. So becoming a great problem solver doesn't mean that you're actually getting anywhere near to where you want to go. It's really, the reframe is becoming great at solution finding, because even that orientation of your attitudes changes the way that you approach something. Like, what's the actual solution we're trying to get towards, which is, end result thinking. It's also one of the things that Charlie Munger was incredible at sort of articulating to other people in its importance, is finding the solution.
He simplified it so well. Always. Yeah. I almost laughed when you would hear the mock-ups or the small clip from him and Warren together, and Charlie just be like, yeah, it's this.
Yeah. Have you ever read, or do you have the book, Seeking Wisdom
I
from
haven't.
Darwin to Munger?
I have not.
Okay. So it's anytime people ask me, like sometimes at the end of podcasts, like, hey, if there's one book you'd recommend, I always mention Seeking Wisdom from Darwin to Munger because it talks about the mental models and things that, Charlie would talk about. And I say this because some people, when they hear me, they'll think that I'm a very systems oriented person. But I'm not. I'm a massive creative person. I was just very blessed with the opportunity to end up finding the value in systems thinking because it helped to constrain and compress down my energy that would go in a million different directions into something that became, a hell of a lot more valuable and usable in my
Does
business.
systems thinking, does that equate to run your life with systems?
Yeah, well, it's recognizing that it's all a system anyway. It's just, are you injecting way too much into your system? Like we're all using a system. It's just how effective is this system that you're using to help you with your energy and with your, attitudes or with your relationships or with your marriage or with your kids. It's like there's a system that's there. It's just whether it's an unintentional one or it's an intentional one.
I think where I was going to
And
keep going. Sorry, I was going to interrupt you. Sorry.
yeah, no. And when you take the example that I give in one of my trainings is, do you know why Mick Jagger ended up developing his signature dance of like him standing at the mic and he's just like moving back and forth, just almost like a snake, very small.
You wouldn't come up with something if I already knew. Tell me.
Yeah. So the reason is because when they were first getting gigs in the London pub scene, once they piled all their equipment onto the small little stages, the only thing that was left for Mick Jagger was this tiny little box. And this tiny little box ended up creating the signature, dance move that separated the Rolling Stones away from the Beatles as well. So that is the power of a constraint in action. And so most people, when they think of the word constraint, they try to wiggle away from it. And I'm like, no. Like the constraint is the thing that forces energy and forces the creativity out into something that's more powerful. So that's just another way of going back to what we were talking about earlier around focus.
When I meant to evoke earlier when I brought up Jim, I say Jim because you were so close to him. It's the first time I've ever called him Jim, so Jim Rohn. But it seemed like through studying him and listening to him, it seems like his belief is the most important thing is someone's personal philosophy.
That's right. That's going to finish your sentence for you. 100%. Yeah. It's it's funny that you bring this up too. Well, not really funny because it is anchored towards Jim. But there was an article that I was reading a few days ago around Wikipedia, and they were breaking down how all links end up leading people down into a final endpoint inside of the world of Wikipedia, and the subject matter that basically, whether it's the first link that you click on if you get to a Wikipedia page, or it's the second or third link, everything leads to philosophy. For example, someone's sitting here and they're listening to this podcast or they're driving right now or whatever they're doing. And maybe along the way, someone goes, why am I listening to this? That's a philosophical question. Or why is this guy talking about this? Or why does this person think it's so important? That's a philosophical question. We're going back to the why thing. When someone's sitting in a meeting that's droning on and on and on, the reason they're going is, why am I even here? Because philosophically, what's under that is, why am I spending part of my life inside of this meeting that I shouldn't have even been invited to? Those are philosophical questions around how I'm supposed to be leading my own life. So it's just, Jim didn't have Wikipedia, but he was hammering that nail home with people is working on your personal philosophy. And that's what your goals swim inside of. And that's what your perceptions swim inside of is your own personal philosophy.
Does it cause the way we think about everything and all the actions we take? Is that why it's so important?
Does it cause it? It colors it. So, you and I can both be doing the same thing. It could be ironing a shirt and you're doing it and you're losing energy from it. And that's because of the attitude you have around it. You could say like, oh, I could be paying someone to do this. And there's a lot of content out there from, online influencers around, all these little other things you should be farming off to other people and no one should be doing it. And, you could be doing so many other valuable things. Well, there's always an asterisk next to it. For me, I love ironing shirts actually. It's calming for me. It's meditative. I just like the act of it. I like feeling like I'm taking care of the shirt. It also brings me closer to my grandma. My grandma like would stand there with piles of clothes and you could drop them off. All of her, sons and daughters would almost drop it off. And, grandma you couldn't get it from a dry cleaner better than the way that grandma did it. So I just think about that. Polishing shoes. I used to sit on our second step on our front porch area with my dad every Sunday, and we would scrub and polish up the cowboy boots. And so someone else can look at that and go like, why is Todd, you can go drop off your boots in New York City to anybody to go in. It's the attitude. That's a philosophy thing that's there. So it's not necessarily just a causation. It also colors the way that you do things. There's an art to it then as well.
So good. What's the best part that you found? Because you have to find satisfaction. You have to find purpose. It's not just everyone else that you're working with. What's the best part about working with all these peak performers that you work with for you?
I mean, it's just I'm going to school every single day. Like I'm constantly sharpening my skills, and there's things that I thought would be true as to the way someone would be reaching success. And there's only one type of person. Like the one that gets placed on a pedestal the most is typically the Kobe type or the Michael Jordan type. And, those are the ones who make it. And there's like a grittiness that's there and a, F you attitude. And I can trot out more examples than that one about other legends. Wayne Gretzky wasn't that way. Like Wayne Gretzky was an incredible competitor, but he does not show up in the world the same way that Michael Jordan does. Wayne Gretzky has way stronger relationships in his own league than Jordan left behind. And that's not to say that Jordan's was bad. It's just that there's so many examples. So being able to do what I get to do, I get to see so many different ways that people are uniquely kind of creating their successes. And I mean, my wife sees this. There's one Thursday every month where I have 13 hours straight of coaching. And she's marveled at it for 13 years. I don't know how you can go into the office and walk out with the same energy. And I'm like, and I tell people, this is what I want to do for others. I built my treadmill. We all have a treadmill. I built my treadmill. I love doing what I get to do. It's my favorite thing on my calendar. It's me being with people like this helps me then produce better content for other people. It's the thing that gives better nuance to the stuff that I would try to share with others to help them, navigate their own ambitions and aspirations. So, there's a lot of people think about purpose a lot, and I more think of it through what's giving me energy. Purpose is, again, that's typically a why-based thing. And there's a lot of other great philosophers, even Seth Godin. People don't think of him as a philosopher, but I'm sure Seth.
I get his newsletter.
Yeah. He often talks about just the dangers of asking these purpose-based questions to yourself. And he's a great thinker.
So what do kids do naturally that top performers have to do intentionally?
Well, it's staying very rooted in your creative imagination. Like kids do it. Kids do it naturally because it's built into the way we need to develop as a human being. When you think about like, all the things that you learned from the age of 6 months to 7.5 years of age, like there's some very complex motor skills that you're learning. Just on the motor skills, taking a fork and sticking it into something and then bringing peas or corn up to your mouth. Like that's an advanced thing. There's not a lot of animals on the planet that can do something like that. Riding a bike, walking, running, jogging, jumping, climbing. Like there's all these things. And then there's knowing how to navigate social situations and hierarchies. And human beings, we have a very complex system. So from 6 months to 7 years of age, because we have to absorb all this stuff, the frontal lobe part of your brain, not to, just to, for the science nerds that are out there listening to this, the frontal lobe, so right behind your forehead, that is largely not as active. What is active is what is largely our creative part of our mind. Okay. That's important because we need to be sponges. We need to soak up. We need to model other people. We get to see how someone walks and we go, okay, well, now I know how to move around faster and, we're goal oriented. So that's great. And what's actually going on from a brainwave side of things, like someone who's listening to us right now, you might be doing other things right now, driving, and you're forgetting, and you're in an alpha brainwave state. That's the level of like just focus or absorption. But above that is beta. And that's where your reasoning mind, that's where this frontal lobe kicks in, where you're judging, you're reasoning, you're thinking about something. Now, the reason that is turned off is if these young kids were always reasoning and judging and thinking about these things, their development would be so much slower. So where they are is they're actually in their theta brainwave state for the most part. Theta is what a lot of us would experience as flow state, really deep concentration. And that's where the seat of creativity is. And so that's why they have no concept of me, myself. There's no identity that a young kid has. So they play with things. That's why they're always in a play state, figuring things out. That's what's waiting for you when you're in theta. We say all this because, or why this is important, is once our frontal lobe kicks in, we start to reason and judge, and we start to analyze things a little bit more, and we start to add narrative to it. We're like, oh, well, that's being childish. And then, so as someone who's a practitioner of alter egos and using this very creative method to help people move past their own insecurities or judgments, the reason why it's so effective is because it really unlocks the creative side of our brain. And we can now play with our abilities and skills through this new tool, which is, this new identity. So that's the thing that kids do way better than adults do, which is get really pulled into the creative side of their imagination. Whereas as we grow older, we don't.
To respect your time, we have a few more minutes here, and then
no, yeah,
you off.
Go right ahead.
What poke a hole in this belief that I have on one of the reasons for whatever the limited success I've had in life. See if you can poke a hole in it so I help other people grow when I'm around them and lead the hundreds of people that I'm responsible for. What I believe about myself is that the reason why I've accomplished whatever I have, we could document it's more than others, it's less than a lot of others. It's because I have a sense of ownership combined with urgency at a high pace.
And that's the belief, is that.
It's just that this level of action, you're allowed to power right through any volume or amount of losses that come your way, and it just doesn't matter. And I just learn and grow regardless. It's the pace surrounded with the urgency to take the action is why I reflect on it. It's
yeah, well, so that might be, if we explored it more, I would say, do you also have an appreciation for pulling yourself into the game film room and taking a look at the game film that you just went and produced? Because that is the rhythm that some ambitious people have, which is just default to action, go, 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 go. Todd just talked about feedback loops, so I'm going to keep feedback loops going.
I want to reflect on why I lost.
Yeah. So it's, and pull yourself and to the sidelines, look at the game film. How did that work?
And then go and try to take action on the miniature thing that I learned and keep stacking.
What can you learn from it? The biggest blind spot for a lot of people is they make the way that they're going after something their ego. Well, that's just the way that I am. I've always been that way. And it's like, well, human beings aren't trees. Or you don't always have to be the same thing. An acorn will always grow into an oak tree. But human beings, the thing that makes us so unique is we have an ability to transform rapidly. I mean, I've coached people through this for a long time. I've seen people fundamentally transform how they approach life because they just got a new idea, or I maybe came in and gave them a new lens on looking at themselves. One of them being they have extreme judgment with the way that they go about something and they carry weight with that. And I'm like, no, that's actually a very common part of the people that operate at your level. What you're doing is you're anchoring your identity towards people who are not built like you. And that doesn't necessarily make you better. It's just that it makes you different. But in the category of other different people, this is a very common thing. And I see it, like people take it deeper and they're like, really? And I'm like, yeah, you don't have to, that's an okay thing. And just, it melts away. So going back to your question, I would just say that rhythm that's there of a feedback loop of default to action. Great. You've got a great pace that's going on. You don't need to always use urgency as the only leverage point to make it happen. There's other things, inspiring people with a vision, a story, inviting them into something else. So urgency is typically a pain-based motivator. What's the gain-based one then that we can use? And that's shining a light off in the future and showing something really bright that's there. And I think in today's day and age, there's so much pain-based stuff that's out there. You know, this side sucks, that side sucks over there. And the reality is in the application of life, there's so much more in the common middle ground than there is on these massive fringes that people are trying to, point at each other with.
Yeah, the middle 60. Can we wrap up with one more question here?
Yeah.
There's so many, and if there's something we're leaving out, what I'd like at the end after I ask this to get your insight on, add in if there is an extra thing, like, man, this is what everyone leaves out that they shouldn't. So if there's anything, you don't have to have that, but if there's that, add that, your best nugget. But how important is it for us to surround ourselves with the right people? We hear that we're an average of the 5 people that we spend the most time around. And
sure.
How have, through all the elite people and all the coaching and all the mindset work you do and the books you write and the speaking, how important is that? Because we seem to be putting an extreme level of importance on that piece now in coaching and how we live our lives.
Yeah. I mean, it's a major factor. I mean, if I wouldn't have had, I'd say Harvey, especially as a key mentor, I don't know that I would have been able to find my voice, because our voices were the same in the way that we speak in a very kind of direct matter with clientele. Whereas if I was around someone who operated through a far more traditional therapeutic or psychological or psychiatry model, or sports psych type people, they kind of will handle people with a lot more kit gloves and try to dive into their feelings way more. I don't do therapy with people. I'm here to help someone perform, which is about movement and creating momentum. And that momentum will hopefully create confidence with someone and then eventually certainty, which is the ultimate place to get someone to. So of course it's important. I would say that a far more pragmatic approach is to ask yourself, well, what's the way that I want other people to be experiencing me when I'm out there? Because if you start showing up in the world in a way that is, whether it's inspiring or encouraging to other people, or sometimes even challenging to someone else, whatever the qualities are that you want to bring, you're going to start to, not to use a overly used term, attract into yourself a higher quality type of people as well. So, yeah, I would, and there's a couple of studies that are out there around the fulfillment of life and what are the biggest factors. Number one factor that was found, actually the largest study was done out of Utah, is your interactions with people just in the general public, not even your closest relationships. That's the second most influential thing on your level of fulfillment. So who is that? It's how you treat people when you go to get your coffee at, your local barista or your like that's because what's beneath that is an attitude about other people that will nourish you in a far different way than just, oh, I'm only going to be good to the people who are close to me. Like my attitude about other people is everyone's my friend. Like that's why it makes it so easy for me to talk to strangers. So yeah, I just think from a pragmatic standpoint, it's helpful to think about, well, how do I want other people to be experiencing me, than it is just like, oh, I'm going to go find 5 more influential people to be around, and that alone is going to help me create success, because that's not necessarily true either.
So wrap us up with how we should engage with you. And you already plugged the book a half hour ago. So you plug it in, but then tell us about, do you have, with this to wrap up, and I'll let you finish it and take us home and you get on. Did you develop a personal philosophy and figure one out from all those times around Jim Rohn?
Oh, big time. We both came from very similar backgrounds. His family came from Odessa, Russia. A part of my family came from Odessa, Russia. Like, he grew up on a farm in Idaho, right below where our family's farm and ranch was in Canada. So, it didn't take much for me to meld those personal philosophies together, from my own experiences. But, yeah, absolutely. And, when it comes to like where people can go and track me down on the interwebs, toddherman.me is my home base on the internet. Todd_Herman is typically the handle that I have on most of the social media platforms. And yeah, I mean, people can go and find the link to the book and all the other stuff that I'm involved with when it comes to trying to help, good people do good things.
And only listen to you at 3.0 on Audible.
I speak pretty fast, so I apologize to people who try to do this at 3.0.
Hey, thanks for sharing the mindset, the brilliance, and everything about you for an hour today. I really appreciate the time with us.
Well, I appreciate the platform to come in and share, and thanks for having me.
100%.